Our homes do not need to breathe. We need to breathe. But what our homes need to be able to do is dry. So when water and moisture get into the wall, it's critical that it's able to dry out. And something that I see in like a hot, humid climate, for instance, is that we have cabinetry up against a wall. We have a mirror attached to a wall. We have bathroom showers and things up against a wall placed there. And without the right air controls in place, if that hot, humid air does get into the wall from outside, it can't dry towards the inside.
Hello, my dears, and welcome back to another episode of the Nutrient Dense podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because today we have Ashley Spanovich on the podcast. Ashley is a certified building biologist and healthy construction consultant. She helps you advocate for yourself on your healthy home project so that you can navigate the complexities of the construction process and design a home to minimize the risk of mold, chemicals, and electromagnetic radiation, which is a mouthful, and we all need so much help with this. So I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes. So let's just dive on in. I think this topic is so important. I think it's also really like gaining traction. I think a lot of more people are kind of becoming aware to this like constant exposure that we have, chemical exposure, toxin exposure, and really wanting to like mitigate this. And I know in a lot of our clients, we see a lot of mold issues, like mold playing a role in their chronic health conditions, their chronic gut issues, recurring SIBO, Hashimoto's, sluggish thyroid function, chronic skin issues. I mean, this is like way more prevalent than I would ever want. And it's oftentimes the cause for people who just like have the chronic illness where it's like they try everything and they can't get better. There's oftentimes this like, it's either heavy metals or it's mold, like very commonly playing a role. So I'm so excited to have you on because we can really help with the body piece, but it's like, what do we do with our environment, you know? So did you get into this work because you had your own experience with this and with like living in mold or living in heavy toxin exposure?
Yeah, so my journey sort of started, I was studying interior design in college and I was living in these old college houses. And when I trace back my symptoms, I definitely see that those houses I was living in were riddled with mold. But I continued to work in toxic environments because as an interior designer, I was going on to construction sites. I was, not wearing a mask, so I'm breathing in drywall dust and getting exposed to caulks and glues and paints and all this stuff. So I think there was just like a combination of living in moldy environments, being exposed to all these different toxins, living an unhealthy lifestyle as well. I'm not going to blame everything on my environment, but it wasn't until I was out of college, working in the field, and finally hit my rock bottom with my gut, actually, which we talked about, that I was like, I need to see a functional and I need to figure out what's going on. And then they tested me for mold. And that was really the light bulb and the moment where I was like, holy crap, like I'm working in all these architecture firms. I feel like a professional in my field, yet I have no idea about any of this. And why isn't anyone talking about that? And that's really what started leading me down this rabbit hole of our environment and mold and chemicals and the way we live, not just the way we're building our buildings, but the way we live in our buildings. And then also electromagnetic radiation, which I know we'll try to condense that down today to make it more simple for people. But that was really what led me into all the things that I do today.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that kind of find this have that, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't really know I needed to learn it. I was kind of like forced into learning about this because I had to figure out my own issues, which is why I learned about mold personally. I always say like I never wanted to help people detox mold, but we had to learn, like my whole team had to learn because especially when we're dealing with chronic gut issues, I mean, it's just so much more common, and there's so many directions I could take this. I'm like, how important do you think it is? How much do you think people are aware of it? Like, there's so many different kind of pathways I want to take this. But do you find in your space that, I mean, most of these people that are building homes have no education or even idea or like concept on of how damaging this mold in a home can actually be to health? I mean, do you see that to be true?
Yeah, most conventional builders are not really considering it. I'd say I'm in a niche of the industry where it seems like it is growing in awareness, and there are a lot more builders who are building more high performance homes. They are looking at these different, some of the aspects of health in the home, specifically water damage and mold. But yeah, it's still very uncommon. It's still very misunderstood. And, most conventional homes are going to be built in a way that it's not considered. So it doesn't matter whether a home is new or whether a home is existing, there's still, opportunities there that the home can have issues before we even move in. So it's not like, oh, buy a new home because it's easier or it's healthier or it won't have issues, because that's exactly the problem that I ran into when I was getting out of one moldy home. But right when I was at the beginning learning about all this, I moved from a home that had some issues. They weren't even that bad of issues, really, looking back, but I thought, oh, I need to get into a new home, only to move into this home to have another set of issues. And we can go into it if you want on like what some of the issues are with new builds. But I mean, even in a dry climate like Colorado, I live in Denver, Colorado. A lot of people will think like, oh, well, it's a really dry climate, so there isn't going to be issues. But the thing that we have is we have cold. So if you think about going outside with an ice cold glass of water on a hot day, what happens to that glass of water? It gets condensation. So when we have cold surfaces in our home and then we turn on our heat and then we're cooking or we're using moisture or we're showering, we get that same condensation on our cold surfaces. So it doesn't matter what climate we're in, we still have issues with our homes, and every home has plumbing. So you really do have to be your own advocate, whether you're looking for an existing home or whether you're considering on building a new home. You really have to make sure that if you're working with a team building a new home, that you can clearly communicate your goals to them so that you can make sure that you don't run into a lot of the common things we see in new build construction.
Yeah. And so it's like when you are building a new home, I mean, when I just walk around, I can see these new homes being built and you can see the mold on the wood, right? That they're like, it's just sitting out there. And especially if it's like raining, I mean, you can see the bones of the house. I mean, I don't know the technical terms for all of this, but literally like the bones in the structure of the house just starting to mold before the house is even fully built, you know? So is that where it's starting? Like for someone that is looking, it's like, how do we mitigate this? How do we minimize our exposure, and what are the right things to do? And with that, how is this mold happening for most people? Like from my lens, I'm telling people like check your HVAC because you have that condensation piece, right? Very common, especially in warm climates like Florida. Like I'm from Florida, so when I was in a moldy place, it was all over the HVAC, which is so common there because people are just cranking AC in the heat honestly all year long. And then there's like leaks and there's plumbing issues. Like where is it most commonly happening in the home, or is it like a total crapshoot and we don't really know?
Oh man, it's going to be different in different climates. Florida is a tough one because you're not only fighting the fact that our homes have plumbing and mechanical systems, which all can be contributors to microbial growth in our environments, but you're also fighting, inward vapor drive from outside. So you have hot, humid air trying to move through the house. And a lot of people in the mold space, I shouldn't say the mold space, but like if you get in Facebook groups and things like that, people will be like, oh, well, the reason is because our homes aren't breathing. And that is true to a point, right? So we have, because of energy efficiency, we've created these really airtight homes that can really isolate us from nature, from the outside. But the problem isn't the airtight home. The problem is that we created airtight homes without the right type of ventilation. So we're not bringing any fresh air in. We're just creating really airtight homes and then doing like exhaust only ventilation where, for instance, like running our exhaust fans, running our range hood. That's considered a type of ventilation. But what we need to be doing is we need to be bringing fresh air into the home.
Yeah.
And so when we're not bringing fresh air into the home, but we're trapping ourselves in this airtight box, then that creates issues for people too, especially because we're using things like spray foam and these other toxic materials to create that air tightness. But air tightness is actually really good because more moisture moves through air than it does through vapor through the wall. So like one of the biggest strategies is actually making sure the home is really air sealed so that we can control where air is moving through the wall. Otherwise, we have, for example, hot, humid air moving through our wall in Florida. Our insulation in the wall is acting as a filter that like we can get mold developing in the cavities because we have holes in our building envelope. So that could be a big problem. Mechanical systems are another really big problem, and everything needs to be checked and reviewed. In your climate, in hot, humid climates, it's very common for lumber to just be brought and delivered to the site moldy. So now we have spores, then the conditions become right in the wall, and then
Yeah.
that festers, it becomes more, it'll grow in the wall. And then we have issues from the start that you can't even see because we have all these brand new beautiful finishes and we have no idea. And then those spores, so then what can happen is if it's growing in the wall, we start to put our homes under negative pressure, meaning we're running our bathroom exhaust fan, we're running our kitchen exhaust, we're running our dryers. And essentially what that's doing is it's putting our home under negative pressure. So if you imagine like a plastic water bottle, okay, and then you take the top of the bottle and you like suck it in, and you know how the bottle just like crinkles up?
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're doing to our home. So physics says that 1 CFM of air in is 1 CFM of air out. So if we are taking air out of the house, it's got to come in from somewhere. And where is that coming in if it's not in a controlled way and we don't have something like an energy recovery ventilator that brings fresh air into the home? It's going to come in through our outlets. It's going to come in through the cracks between our wall and our baseboard. It's going to come in through our light fixtures and
Whoa.
areas where there might have been contamination in the wall. Now, we have our HVAC system that's recirculating all that air. If we have mold spores in the air from our walls, we can get that into our HVAC system, and that's just going to contaminate it and blow it around. So partly you have to know, okay, well, is the source of the contamination my HVAC, or is the source of the contamination somewhere else and my HVAC is actually just blowing it around?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to figure out what the problem is and isolate it. And in the beginning, if you're building new, you have a lot of control over that because you can have those conversations with your builder and your team and make sure that you're managing everything from the very beginning. But as we discussed, like more people are probably just buying an existing home or maybe even
Yeah.
buying a new production home. And when you're buying a new production home, it definitely gets a lot more challenging because you often don't have a lot of say. You might be able to go out on site and monitor some things. You might be able to work with the builder and say, hey, if we notice anything, can we pay for it on our dime to get this removed? Sometimes that's an option. Sometimes that's not. Most of the time it's not because technically you don't own the house yet. If you're going to buy an existing home, that gets a little more challenging.
I think what to look for when buying new home, yes. And before you jump into that, just so I'm understanding correctly, like the home is breathing. So it's like this air is it can come. What I'm hearing you say is like the air that it's almost like a living organism, and the air is like trying to like come into the home, and that's where we can get mold like behind walls that we can't even see. Is that what kind of what you're saying? So because I've always wondered, I'm like, how is there mold growing behind this like wall with no water around it, you know?
Yeah.
Because when I think of mold, I'm like, check under your sink, check around the shower. It can definitely grow like behind the shower. That's pretty big because there's like a small leak that no one catches and like right where the shower head is. And then like the HVAC, or like look for water spots. And I'm asking people like, have you had a flood, any hurricanes, any damage, any pipe bursts, anything like that? Because of course those are big like water exposures. But what you're saying in addition to that is just that like this like humid air is trying to kind of circulate in the house. And that's when we'll get like baseboards starting to like peel away and crack and stuff. And then we'll get the mold kind of growing behind the wall, even though there's no water around.
Potentially, yeah. So
Yeah.
depending on your climate, you could have hot, humid air trying to move in, or if you're in a cold climate, you could have heat condensing on a cold surface
Yeah.
and creating moisture issues in the wall that way. And so there's a couple different things I want to just clarify. So our homes do not need to breathe. We need to breathe. But what our homes need to be able to do is dry. So when water and moisture get into the wall, it's critical that it's able to dry out. And something that I see in like a hot, humid climate, for instance, is that we have cabinetry up against a wall. We have a mirror attached to a wall. We have bathroom showers and things up against a wall placed there. And without the right air controls in place, if that hot, humid air does get into the wall from outside, it can't dry towards the inside. So we can start to develop issues there. And so that's why no matter what you do, whether it's buying an existing home or whether it is building a new home, it's really crucial to invest in the building envelope because first and foremost, that is the piece that is really going to protect you from the outside. And you want to have control over what is coming in and what is going out because, we are adding insulation into our walls. And what insulation does is it slows drying. So that's also going to make it harder for the wall to dry. So there's a lot of pieces to it. And it's not meant to be scary, but it's meant to be, you want to be conscious about it. So like if you're just moving into a home in your climate and you don't know how they built the building envelope, you don't know if the air controls are in place, you want to be really careful about pushing things up against the wall or hanging things on the wall even. And that's an exterior wall, so a perimeter wall. So those are the walls that interface the outside to the inside. Those walls, because there's a pressure dynamic going on in that wall that we are not seeing. That's heat is trying to move in and out, air is trying to dry. And when we impede the drying from the inside, we can create issues. So sometimes you'll see that's where the bottom of the baseboards get moldy, or especially if we paint it with something that is a vapor closed paint, meaning it doesn't allow vapor movement through it. So yeah, I know it's kind of a lot.
It's so interesting. Oh my gosh. So is it good to open our windows? Like, is it good to open our windows and let the air circulate? Or what if it's hot out? Or what if it's really cold out? I mean, honestly, I feel like when it's really cold out, like my home is not like that hot. So that feels like a little different, but unless there's like a fire going, I guess. But when it's definitely hot out and then that hot air could be coming in, I mean, is it good to open our windows every day? I feel like I open my windows every day. So I just feel like it's good to let the air circulate, and we're like enclosed in these boxes, but is that causing more issues or is that helping?
So everyone hates this response, but it depends.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, in a hot, humid climate like yours, I'd definitely be just monitoring the relative humidity and using a dehumidifier to make sure that you aren't bringing in excess humidity. I do think that getting fresh air into our homes is important, especially if we don't have a controlled mechanical fresh air source installed in our home. So,
And what is that? What is a controlled mechanical? What is that?
So there's something called an ERV, which is an energy recovery ventilator, and it brings in filtered fresh air into the home.
I want this.
And it is a great upgrade, but not everybody has those in the home. If you're building a new home, you would want something along those lines. In your hot, humid climate, you're probably going to want something more like a ventilating dehumidifier. So it's something that brings fresh air in, but dehumidifies it. So, and maybe you might even do a dehumidifier and an ERV. You'd want to work. So if you're building new, I just want to clarify. If you're building new, you really want to work with a mechanical designer and professionals to really figure out what's best for your specific home, your specific climate. But generally, if you don't have that fresh air, that mechanical source of fresh air, then opening up the windows on a day that's not super hot and humid is a great idea. Or doing a quick, one of the things I say too is just like running through the house one time. So go through every window, just open it one by one, and then literally just go and close it one by one. So you get a little bit of air movement there, but then making sure that you're using a dehumidifier so that if you did bring outside moisture in, that you're actually removing it from the indoors.
Yeah. I need a good dehumidifier. I've been thinking about that for a little while. Yeah. Okay. So for someone who is like interested in buying a new home, what are some of these key things? We can't control it all, right? Unless we're kind of starting from scratch, which would be ideal. A lot of people aren't, some people are. So if you are starting from scratch, work with Ashley. Hire Ashley to walk you through this process. I will say that this is my goal. But if you're going to purchase, what are some things that people can look out for to minimize their, potential risk or like exposure to, mold specifically? I know there's many other different toxins like in paints and all sorts of stuff and like carpet and all of that, but like mold specifically, what can we look for?
Yeah. Oh, this one is really tough because there's quite a few things. So I'll just give you a little bit of an example here because my husband and I are thinking, okay, do we build something or do we
Hmm.
buy something and renovate it? From my knowledge, I don't think that I think it's going to be really difficult to find an existing home that doesn't have some sort of
Yeah.
issue. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I've just seen so many things now that that's sort of where my mind lies. I'm like, it's really hard to find something that was built well.
Hmm.
And so, what I recommend, if you have it in you, is to look at something on the lower end of your budget and give yourself a nice, healthy budget for repairs and
Mm.
potential remediation. And so, any home I buy pre existing, I would, at a very minimum, go through and do essentially a flood cut around the whole perimeter of the home. So, put the
Yeah.
drywall up. You can do it, probably I'd say 2 to 4 feet up from the ground, all the way around the perimeter of the home so that
Mm.
you can actually see what is inside the walls.
Yeah.
Do we need to remove the siding? Do we need to redo the weather resistive barrier on the other side? Like what is happening? Is there something happening on the exterior that we need to fix? What can we remove? Because that's going to be a big potential source of issues in the home.
Hmm.
First and foremost, though, before you even get there, let's just walk through like you're looking at a home, you're on the street, and you're like, okay, how can I kind of try to minimize and identify some things?
Yeah.
Well, the first things you're going to look at is the exterior siding. Okay, is there any discoloration happening on the exterior siding? Is there, what
Hmm.
kind of siding is it? Is it stucco? Is it brick? Is it stone? Stucco,
Mm.
brick, and stone are what they call reservoir claddings. That means that they actually take on moisture, they can hold water, and then if they're holding onto water and it's a hot day, the water can be pushed into the wall via solar drive. So from the sun, the sun moves it into the wall. A good installation would have a rain screen behind it that allows that water to drain out to the bottom. But it's
Mm.
very rare that we see this done. So
Okay.
I would say if you're wanting to find a wall that has lower risk, looking for something that actually has like a hardy board siding, like the fiber cement siding, like the panels, or even
Mm.
vinyl siding potentially might be a lower risk option for the wall because those are usually, and this is very black and white and it's not always true. So, there
Yeah.
might be a stone installation that was done well. There might be, a vinyl or fiber cement that was done bad. So, but this is sort of like larger picture of,
Hmm.
these have usually more drainage behind them, allowing for that water to drain out. So that's the first thing I would look at. I also look at like what landscaping is around the house.
Mm. Yeah.
Are there trees and shrubs and things that are collecting water that are
Hmm.
just up against the siding? Because if that's the case, then there's probably been water damage to that wall as well.
Hmm.
And if it can't drain,
Yeah.
it can't drain.
I'm always saying this. Like I'm like we'll be walking down the street and I'm like I would not purchase this home. It is underneath so many trees and there's water just being poured on this home nonstop. And
Mhm.
obviously like your home can withstand rain and all that stuff. But I'm just like you can just tell. I'm like because there's no sun. If there's no sun, and this is just my like intuition, but if there's no sun being able to even like poke through these trees and these trees are just getting like so wet and like dumping water, I'm like this is gonna be moldy. You can like already smell it. I'm just being
Yeah.
outside.
Hmm. That and sprinkler systems, just like people's sprinkler systems are directed right to the house and
Yeah.
it's just getting, sprayed all the time. So looking at that and really just saying, like thinking, I always say like think like water. What would water do? If it was pouring rain, where would the water go? And try to
Yes.
follow that and see, how has water been impacting this house? I would probably never buy a home in your climate that had a crawl space. So that would just be,
I know, I hear all about the crawl spaces.
yep. I would probably just say off my list altogether in your climate, hot, humid. So because they're a nightmare, it's very hard to keep the moisture out of the crawl space. They need to be dehumidified. They need to be encapsulated. If they're encapsulated, if they're being dehumidified, it's better. But you're always going to have the risk of mold growing under the subfloor of like, so if you're in the crawl space, it would be the ceiling. And if you're, on the first floor of the
Right.
home, it would be the floor of the first story. So the floor that connects the living space to the crawl space. That area is just, it's vulnerable and it's usually made
Yeah.
out of wood. It's usually covered in some sort of growth. And then that air can move through into your living space via the stack effect. So hot air is always wanting to rise. So it is pushing up through your home. Even here in dry Colorado, here we talk about new builds again. The home that I'm in now, what they'll do is they'll pour the concrete for the crawl space. So it's not a dirt crawl space. So let's just clarify that. Dirt crawl spaces,
Yeah.
they're an absolute no-no in my opinion.
Okay. Well, because it's just like I mean, it's like the earth. It's like
just the
moisture,
earth,
right?
which is always going to
Yeah.
be wet. So the
Yeah.
the ground is always wet.
Yeah.
You can do a conditioned crawl space, which means that the crawl space becomes part of the thermal boundary of the home. That means that you're providing some sort of conditioning to it. You might have a supply, like a mechanical supply that's blowing cold or warm air in it. So it's part of your thermal boundary of your home. Now, for instance, I have this, and it's very common in my area, where they pour concrete walls. So the crawl space is totally conditioned. They pour what they call a rat slab, which is essentially just a slab of concrete for the foundation. And then what happens is then they put the framing down to frame the rest of the house. They put the plywood sheathing and the floor joists in, and the moisture from the concrete creates mold growth on the underside of the subfloor. So another reason why new builds can be moldy. So we're in a dry climate, but the moisture from the concrete is an issue. So we have to be very conscious about that. So really any type of crawl space is at risk. So you really, if you're going to buy something new before you even get into it, I have a thorough mold inspection, especially if you're not going to gut everything down to the studs,
Yeah.
very thorough mold inspection. And we're talking beyond air samples. We need to be really looking at this. We need to be doing swabs of anything that has discoloration. Because you just need to know what you're getting into. And again, that's why it can be really hard to know what's in the walls. That's why I recommend that flood cut.
Yeah.
So you
No,
can
that's smart.
see what's back
Yeah.
there. And then, but you can't do that until after you've already purchased the home.
Right.
So,
Right.
so kind of identifying some things on the outside that are going to be indicators of, okay, well, is this going to have an issue? Is going to be helpful to start to mitigate some of that risk.
Yeah, and the other things that I've heard, so and you tell me if I'm correct, but like some homes will have a flat roof where the water's just literally pooling on top of the house. And yes, there's gutters and things like that, but I personally would never purchase a home with like a flat with like a flat roof. Like the more modern homes that are just like they're like super, I don't know, cool looking, right? But like where is the water going when it rains? It's like pooling on top, or a lot of like modern apartment buildings will have this. And sometimes when I was, oh my gosh, years ago, I was like searching for an apartment without mold and it took me forever. I moved like 5 times in 1 year. It was awful. And my life kind of just like flipped upside down. But I would go into the top floor, like say something was on the 3rd floor, the top floor, and I'm like, I can smell mold in this brand new apartment. And I'm like, it has to be coming from the roof. And then on the 1st floor, you risk like the flood. So I go 2nd floor. I go 2nd floor, whereas like hopefully there's less. Hopefully it's more insulated. Like it's just like cooler because there's like things around it, like other like people on top and bottom, like keeping it cooler. And then if there's water damage, it would be from the person upstairs. It wouldn't be from like the constant rain. This is my brain working. And I'm like, so I gotta go 2nd floor, because I've gone into the top floor and I'm like, this apartment building is 2 years old and I can smell, it smells like mold in here. And there hasn't been a leak or a flood or anything like that, or a pipe burst, but I'm like, this has a flat roof. Like, so am I right in thinking that?
I think we'll drive ourselves crazy if we start to figure out what's the best, because I think that you're going to have challenges with any one of them.
Yeah. It's
Like,
me. I'm like second floor.
yeah, like I had a colleague who had a stack pipe that like leaked that went all the way through the wall. So it was like every single unit
Yeah.
on every single floor was just getting hit with like horrendous mold behind the wall. I honestly, I when it comes to the apartments, like I don't know if there is a better. It's really gonna
Yeah.
depend. It's really
Yeah.
gonna depend. And on the flat roof thing, like I think if you're trying to limit your risk and because you don't know how that flat roof was
Right.
built, I
Right.
think maybe trying to steer away from those is probably gonna be a less risky decision
Yeah.
when you're looking for something. However, I'm not anti-flat roof. There's gonna be a lot of people who are anti-flat roof, but they have to be done really well. Like I'm working on a project right now where, I mean, I've spent hours trying to work with the architect and detailing it properly for our climate because it is super risky and it has to
Yeah.
be detailed really well. And then you design it and it has to be implemented that way. Like we have to make sure that it's actually getting done that way. So it can be done if it's something that you really want and you like the look architecturally, but it is really challenging to do. So yeah, the risks definitely are higher when it comes to like looking for something that's already done that way.
We are big fans of eating enough protein over here on Team Han. Protein is essential for muscle repair, a strong gut lining, balanced blood sugar levels, and so much more. For most of our clients, we like recommending around 100 grams of protein per day to start, and adding in a good quality protein powder can be super helpful for hitting those numbers. It's an easy add-in. You can throw it into a smoothie or even add it to oatmeal. Choosing the right protein powder can feel so overwhelming. Half of them are full of fillers and crap ingredients, and the other half, honestly, just taste bad. Equip Protein is one of my go-to recommendations for our clients and one of my personal favorites. We love it because it only has a small handful of ingredients. It's 100% carefully sourced, real foods, no additives, allergens, chemicals, fillers, or other junk. It's gluten-free, and it contains 21 grams of protein per serving. Equip's Prime Protein also offers a complete amino acid profile. It's also independently tested to make sure that the protein powder is free of harmful amounts of heavy metals and toxins like glyphosate, which is honestly super hard to find. Equip Prime Protein is a grass-fed beef protein. So it is animal-based, but it's dairy-free, unlike whey or casein protein powders. Grass-fed beef protein is packed with collagen, gelatin, and micronutrients that your body needs. We also see that it's typically much better tolerated in our clients with chronic gut and digestive issues over something like a plant-based protein powder. In addition, some of their flavors do contain natural flavors, but they're distilled vapors from natural and organic compounds or fruits like vanilla, coconut, and strawberry, and are processed without any chemicals, fillers, binders, or artificial ingredients, which once again is incredibly hard to find. Personally, I buy both the chocolate and the vanilla flavors of the Equip Prime Protein, but honestly, they have like so many other incredible flavors out now. If you're interested in trying out Equip Prime Protein, you can use the code Hannah Aylward HHC at checkout for 15% off, and we'll pop that code in the show notes of this episode for you as well. So once again, you can go to equipfoods.com, choose the flavor of protein powder that you want, and then use code Hannah Aylward HHC for 15% off. And the other thing that I've heard is the roofs that have, I actually don't know what this is called, so people are probably going to laugh at me, but you know, the like Mediterranean, like Spanish villa
Yeah, like
looking.
the clay tile.
Yes, which I love the look of that. Like I love a home with kind of that architectural design. But is it true that water can get stuck in between those tiles pretty easily and kind of like cause more water damage to the roof?
So really, the final finish of the roof shouldn't be the water control layer, right? You have a water control layer underneath of that.
Right.
What we need to be a new build, right? We need to make sure that when water gets underneath those tiles, because we have to assume it always will, how does it drain out? again, it just depends. How was it built?
Yeah.
What was the assembly? We will really limit ourselves if we start to thinking like, I will never do flat roofs. I'll never do Spanish tile. I'll never do this. I'll never do. We'll start to be like, oh, wow. And there's really nothing out there. And that's where like the nervous system piece for me comes in, because I've been there where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
no, we can't do this and this and this. And I think it's more damaging, especially for somebody who is just like trying to be healthier,
Yeah.
just the average person just trying to do better. It
Yeah.
starts to like really create a lot of panic and fear.
Yeah.
And so you have to just, it is so very dependent on how things were built. And sometimes if a home is newer, or sometimes even when it's not newer, you can access the plans to kind of get an idea of like, how was this roof assembled? Half the time it's not going to be the same thing, because residential is the Wild West and they don't really keep great documentation of all that. And sometimes what's documented isn't actually what's getting built. But you could always try to request that. I think more so though, if we're thinking really generically, flat roof would be a higher risk. The Spanish tile, maybe not as higher risk. Like
Yeah.
that's just
That's great.
going to come down to like, okay, any roof could potentially have issues.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. That's great news, because I love I love how they look. And then I heard that somewhere and I was like, oh no, great. No, totally. For me, for how I've lived my life so far, it's just been like, where can I just like, if there's an option that's less risky, I'm just going to take that, and then when I build my own home, that's when I'll really go into detail with it. But okay. So you also mentioned like you do a thorough mold inspection. And what I think we'll hear from people is, because when you buy a home, they do an inspection, right? And then it's like, oh, it passed the inspection, there's no mold. And I'm like, untrue. Unfortunately, untrue. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say if you've done an inspection and they're like, oh no, all clear, there's nothing, then I don't believe that, because I think every home has something when we really start to dig. Air samples are never going to be enough. That's just like, we're not like, what if the air isn't moving through the wall? Like what we kind of almost need to do an inspection where we set things up to encourage that air movement. So like if you're going to do an air sample, for instance, and you see like, I don't know, we'll just use an example of like bubbling wood floor. You're like, oh, that's a little funny over here. You do an air sample, nothing shows up. Well, what if you take the air sample, the spore trap, and you put it close to that, and then you like kind of use a little bit of a rubber mallet to disrupt that floor area? Can we move some of that air and get it into the spore trap? Like, you want to find an inspector who can actually do some more of these creative tests rather than just somebody who's going to come in and just do an air sample. You want to be doing swabs. You want to be doing cavity samples. You want to be doing borescopes where they take a little tiny video camera and, maybe they take off the escutcheon of the plumbing fixture or the like shower handle, and they, put the borescope in behind the shower head and you can kind of see behind the wall, right? Can you find
great.
somebody who can do all these different test methods
Yeah.
for you? And you're gonna want this if you're not gonna gut anything. Like if you're like, I'm just gonna move in, then you want to put all your money into inspection. If you know you're gonna gut, if you know you're gonna like tear things down, I don't worry so much about that, because you're just gonna remove it. So
Right.
I wouldn't spend the money on all the inspections if you know you're just gonna rip everything out.
Okay. So you talked about checking like the external, like that's where you'll first see some signs. Once we get inside of a home that we're at an open house and we're looking at buying this home, what are a few things that we can look out for to kind of minimize that risk as best as we can?
Yeah. First thing first, I would be very cautious of mechanical systems in an unconditioned space. So we talked about the crawl space already. If
Right.
there's a crawl space down there, it's a dirt crawl space, and there's a mechanical system in there, you're replacing that. You're relocating where that mechanical system is. You're replacing everything.
And when you say mechanical system, what is this?
Yes. So this is your furnace, your
Okay.
air handler that
Okay.
essentially so do you know where you change your filter every month? Yep, that. So essentially the
Okay.
air handler, they place that, and you might see it in a mechanical room. That air handler is going to be what filters your air and then redistributes it to the rest of the house.
Yeah.
It's a little bit leaky. So it's inherently
Yeah.
leaky. So you want to make sure that you're not putting it in a space that it's going to be in the hottest room of the house when it's trying to cool your house down. Again,
Yes.
you're going to have condensation issues. And if there's issues in this unconditioned space, then if it's a little leaky, the air is going to be getting into your system.
Okay.
So it could be that unconditioned space could be contaminating the furnace, like just by being in that room.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it's in the conditioned part of the home. And that means like any room of the home where you have supply air coming into the home that is cooling or heating the home.
Okay.
So that is really important because that's a very expensive thing to change.
Yes.
So, it could lead to a lot of issues and it's very expensive to change. So if you can find something, if you don't want to do any changes, you don't want to put any money into it, then find something that has like an independent mechanical room where you walk in, you open a door, you can change your furnace filter. It's easy to maintain. That's going to be a lower risk possibility. The other thing is mini splits. So mini splits are, they're heat pump technology. So they're put onto a wall, they cool the air. They don't do a really great job at dehumidification. People don't maintain them. So a lot of moisture sits in them and they get funky. So I would probably be pretty cautious about those too. I always assume the worst of people. I always assume like people are not maintaining this. Unless someone can provide me documentation, and I would ask if you're looking at a house, like, can you provide or can the owner provide documentation on or a maintenance schedule on when was the last time they maintained all their systems? I keep one for my house. So when I sell my house, like the person who's going to buy it is going to be like, wow, they really kept up with this stuff.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
And that looks so good. And if you're listening to this too, like consider doing that because I think that that's a value add when you're selling your house.
For sure. Oh my gosh. If I would be more likely to buy a home. I've said before, like I pray that when I'm buying a home, I can find someone who cared about their home, right? That wasn't just like in there for a year and out or whatever. I mean, not that that means you don't care, but someone who was like, I've put a lot of work into this home. We've lived here for a while. We've maintained the home. You can tell, right? Like I always think of my friends' parents who have like done so much work on their home and they like so care about the house. Like that would be a good house to purchase because they've paid attention.
Exactly. Because that's half the battle, right? It's like half the reason a lot of these homes have issues is because the person who lived there never cared. They never
just neglected.
Neglected it. Yeah. So, looking at the mechanical is really important. Obviously, looking around any plumbing, just visual signs for bubbling, buckling, cracking, peeling paint. Sometimes you can see like where things were fixed. So you might see like different sheens of paint and you're like, what happened here? And like, was it below the bathroom that's upstairs or something like that? So you can kind of start to use clues like that. But again, thinking like water, where is water? What locations do you have water sources in the home? Where are toilets? Where are bathtubs? Where are sinks? Looking in and around all those spaces is going to be really, really important. One other big one is if there's a vented attic. So this is an unconditioned attic. If you can tell. So if you go outside of the house, you can sometimes see soffit vents, like in the soffit. So if you're looking at the overhangs of the roof and you look up, you can kind of see like filtered, like perforated siding or panels or something like that. So air moves through that and then goes out of a ridge vent. That is an unconditioned space in the home. What can happen is when you're cooling the air in the home, you're losing air from inside the house. It's going through recessed can lights and then getting into the unconditioned space. So that air movement through your air control layer, through the lights, can be an issue. That's why if you're doing an inspection and there is vented, unconditioned attic space, then you want to make sure that inspector is going to do a really thorough assessment up there too, because that's a very common place to see issues is in that area.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like you would likely, see it, right? Like you'd probably see growth up there.
You would probably see it if you go up there, but that's not something that you're probably going to do as someone walking around, right?
No, totally. Yeah. Oh my God. Unless it's me.
Yeah.
I'm over there with the flashlight.
Right.
Like literally.
I mean, you might see it, like you might start to
Yeah.
see if you can see like let's say black. Like if you see like little black
Yeah.
rings around the recessed
Yes.
fanlight when you're using your exhaust fans and your home gets under negative pressure, you're drawing air from that unconditioned space into the house. And so you might
Yeah.
start to see some of that dirty air trying to come through the can lights. The resolution of this is really we want to make sure all of our can lights are sealed really well from
Yeah.
our attic space. So there's ways to fix it, but those are the big places that I would keep an eye on if you're looking for looking for an existing home. And
Okay.
I do want to mention too, I have a free guide on this and
I was
an
gonna say, I'm like, what
entire
resources do you have?
I have an entire podcast episode and a free guide on what to look for. So
Okay.
definitely if you're listening to this, check that out
Yeah.
because that goes into way more detail than we can
Okay.
cover in this hour. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. We'll link that in the show notes for everyone below. Because I mean, even as you're saying some of these things, I'm like, I don't even know some of these words.
Yeah. I'm working on like trying to clarify this because it's, because I do so much in the new construction space.
Yeah.
I don't realize what, language people don't
Yeah.
typically.
No, I've just never purchased a home before,
Yeah.
So if someone's purchased a home and like really done a lot of research, they probably are familiar with some of the words that you're saying, but I've rented my whole life. So yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a lot to learn about all of this. So we have some things to look for. You've got a guide. Everyone's going to download that, including me. And we're going to look at all of that. We're looking for signs of water damage. We're looking for crawl spaces. I know the crawl spaces really freak me out, honestly. The other thing is like basements. Like, what do you think about these basements? I feel like I remember because my whole team we've done trainings with Dr. Jill Krista, who is like big in the mold space, and because we see a lot of people sick with mold issues. So we work on the body, not really the home, right? But I know she mentioned doing some research, and she was like, 85% or 90% of the basements that I've tested have high levels of mold spores and mycotoxin. So what about these basements?
Basements can be issues too because you have to remember
Yeah.
the ground is always wet. And
Right.
one of the like rules of building science is that moisture is always going to move from wet to dry. So it's always going to be trying to dry inward into your basement. So when I'm looking for a new home, I'm usually looking for an unfinished basement. If I'm building a new home, I'm going to design it. You can finish your basement, no problem. Like there's no problem with how you design it. It's just the problem is that people haven't been designing basements this way. They're not using the right waterproofing on the outside.
Okay.
And things like sometimes they're not even adding the right drainage. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be happening. So the older the home, the more likely that you have basement moisture issues. So
Yeah.
you really need to be careful. I personally would never buy a home that has a finished basement.
Okay.
Unless because you don't know what's underneath. You don't know what's
Yeah.
behind. It could look really nice. I know that that's a value add. And especially, when people are buying homes, it's a real estate agents will be like, oh, living space basement,
Yeah.
it's desired, but
Yeah.
you just don't know what's going on. So I like to see, if I see an unfinished, clean, dry basement, I actually like that. So
Okay.
that's one of the things we're looking for. If we find something, if it has a basement, if it's clean, if it's dry, I kind of like that because then I can see like plumbing running that's exposed and things are exposed.
Yeah.
I can see them. And then we would probably use the basement for more like storage, or it wouldn't be a living area. It would be more of a storage
Right.
space. You can work on it to make it a living area, but you really have to do a lot to fix that.
Yeah.
Usually.
I feel like, I mean, if I walk into a basement, you can usually smell it. And I know you can't always smell mold, but I mean, every basement I've been in, I'm like, it smells kind of musty in here.
Yeah.
Like it smells kind of moldy. It smells kind of musty because it's like in the earth. It's like
Yeah.
the room is in the earth. You can like feel the moisture in the air is how I feel, and then a lot of our clients will be like, oh yeah, well I grew up in a house and like the basement flooded a lot, and I'm like, oh goodness. Like it's just a lot. It just feels like an issue for me. I don't want a basement.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, in a hot, humid climate, like
Yeah.
where there's a lot of moisture, I mean, you probably have more moisture
Yeah.
entering the basement. So there's a lot of like nuances to look for if you do look at a basement, because I know here it's hard. You can't find stuff without crawl spaces in basements. There just isn't,
Right.
it's not available.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. In Florida, like no one has a basement.
yeah,
You just like don't really have them. Probably because the rain and the flooding, like people just don't even have them.
yeah,
Yeah. But I know, you go up to like Massachusetts or like you go to Ohio or you go to these other places and like it's very common for people to have
yeah.
basements. Yeah. Okay, so I know like I want to be mindful of your time, but I want to get into EMFs a little bit too. So EMFs, can you explain to us what the heck they are? And I want your professional opinion on like, do you really think these are making a difference in our health? Because we are surrounded with them now. I mean, with like cell phones and cell towers and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all of that stuff. I try to be somewhat conscious of that, but honestly, I'm like way more informed on the mold piece than I am the EMF piece. So, can you break down for the audience like what they are and I'd love your take on, yeah, I mean, do you really see them making a difference in people's health and is it something we should take into consideration?
Yeah. Ooh, man, oh man. So my whole journey started with mold and
Hmm.
it ended with EMF, meaning
Okay.
like I actually feel like the EMFs are more foundational. And I think that
Wow.
if you're not getting your electromagnetic environment in check, then you're going to have a way harder time processing anything in your body
Okay.
so let's just break this down. So EMFs are electromagnetic fields. This can be non-native from all of our technology, our building wiring, our cell phones, our computers, like all of that kind of stuff. But we also have native EMF. So we have things like the sun. We
Mm.
have, UVA, UVB. We have infrared light from the sun. All of these we know are very healing. So when we're not getting enough of the native
Mm.
electromagnetic radiation, like grounding and getting those free electrons from the earth, and all we're doing is bombarding ourselves with non-native EMF, like blue light, like
Yeah.
our radio frequencies from our cell phones and all this other stuff, it really like impacts our mitochondria. And there's
Yeah.
studies and research that show that radio frequencies open up our voltage gated calcium channels that allow calcium to flood our cells. And that
Mm.
kind of creates this downstream effect of other health issues. So I really feel like the EMF piece is, I know for me personally, I struggled for years and years and years to finally feel good until I really got serious about my electroclimate, meaning like
Mm.
focusing on the healing powers of native EMFs and like light exposure and blocking blue light and grounding, and then really minimizing our exposures after minimizing blue light exposure before sunrise and after dark, but then also
Hmm.
like making it super low EMF throughout the house as well. That was, I think, sped up my healing super fast
That's
because it was
amazing.
so foundational. It's impacting your mitochondria. I have a whole blog post which we can link that has all the studies and things that I've compiled showing like the
Okay.
different impacts of the different types of EMFs. So some really like low hanging fruit for people
Yeah.
on this is first and foremost like really monitoring our cell phone usage. A lot of people are like, well, what about the cell phone tower down the street? I'm actually in a home where I can see cell towers from my window and they're not
Mm.
impacting my house. Building
Mm.
materials can play a role in that. The direction of the antenna can play a role in that. So don't fear what's outside. Don't, I mean, there's already so much to fear, right? Don't fear what's
Yeah.
outside. One thing you can control though is your cell phone.
Yeah.
So a safe level during in your sleeping environment is under 10 microwatts per meter square for radio frequencies. Okay, our cell phones emit 450,000 microwatts per
Oh
square
my
meter.
gosh. Girl, this phone's gonna. I often think, I'm like, if anything takes me down, it's gonna be this freaking phone.
So, and that's not even talking about just like the addiction it creates with
No,
like
I
social
know. I mean, it's in my
media.
hand. Like, it's just like in my hand. And sometimes I can like feel it in my hand. And I'm like, this is not good for me. Like, I don't know. That might sound like woo or whatever, but I'm just like holding the cell phone and I'm like, I think this is like not only giving me carpal tunnel, but like these frequencies are just not, it's like too much. I can feel the electromagnetic frequencies in my hand. And like, I got to put this thing down, you know?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I do. I truly feel it. I have part of my symptoms is I have tinnitus. I don't struggle with it as much anymore, but if I'm laying down in bed and my cell phone is not on airplane mode with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi off,
Yeah.
I will get, I don't know if it's because my mind starts to really quiet or what, but I will hear, like, it sounds like an antenna. So like I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh shoot, Brandon, that's my husband. I'm like, did you turn your phone on airplane mode? Or is my phone on airplane mode? Did one of us forget? And usually we did. So it's pretty wild. Like
Wow.
I've been able to deduce it to that at this point where I'm like, nope, like we forgot to put it on airplane mode. So that's like first and foremost is like get yourself hardwired in. You can get
Yeah.
Ethernet cables to plug your laptop in. So you can turn the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi off on your computer screen. You can connect yourself to iMessage so that you're not even, you can just turn your phone off. You don't even need it and you can still be connected. Can't make a phone call, but you can message. And, really just try to limit your exposure there because it is the biggest contributor in exposure that we have.
The cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing that, then I wouldn't go too crazy with the rest of the house because
Yeah.
there's just so many sources that can be contributing. And I mean, I can't recommend getting an electromagnetic radiation specialist to come out and actually do a test.
Yeah.
Get the meters, test for you and show you because once you know forever usually until you move environments and there's external factors and things like that. But for the most part, you really start to see like what devices do I have that are emitting and how much lower can I bring these levels?
And when we put our phone on airplane mode, that it really helps. Like it stops that frequency like pretty like fully or
From what my meters can test, it will lower it fully. Now there are different, bands and frequencies and things that my meters aren't picking up. So we're doing the best that we can with that.
but significant reduction.
With a significant reduction.
Okay.
The next best thing that you can do if you don't want to fiddle with your settings is you can get like a Faraday bag. So essentially a bag that blocks the radiation. But again, those are only like 98 or 99% reduction. So you're still going to get a little bit from that.
So great.
Yeah, it's still something, right? It's more
Yeah.
than we're normally doing. So I recommend, turn that thing on airplane mode and just disconnecting as much as you can. And turn it on red screen when before sunrise and after dark. I have an Instagram post that walks you through like the steps of that, but you can usually just find it if you just Google YouTube. Someone's created that where you can learn how to put your iPhone on a red screen, and Android does that as well.
Okay, that's great. And what about like when things are plugged in charging? I saw someone who had someone coming to their home to like test the frequencies or whatever, and it was like when the phone was plugged into the charger, it was like crazy high. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. Anytime anything is plugged into a wall, you're going to get an exposure to an electric field. So really, we're getting exposed to that anyway from our building wiring. Like it extends 6 to 8 feet out into the area. If your phone is charging, you might not want to hold it and like put it up to your ear. Take your phone off the charger because you're already going to get so there's 4 fields that we're testing. There's radio frequency, there's electric fields, there's magnetic fields, and then there's dirty electricity. So when our cell phones are on, that is a radio frequency signal. When our phone is charging and our technology, anything that's plugged into a wall, that's an electric field and potentially a magnetic field.
Okay.
So when you are using your phone as it is plugged into a wall, you're getting an electric field exposure and a radio frequency exposure. So you're kind of just doubling the exposure. So it's good practice to really just actually unplug all of your devices when they're not in use.
Okay.
That's a very low hanging fruit. So like your toaster oven, your electric tea kettle, your microwave, if you have a microwave on the counter, your like, I don't know, computer, laptop charger. I mean, anything that is plugged into your walls could be creating dirty electricity back on your wires. So unplugging that is a really low hanging fruit that can drop your levels significantly.
And what do you think about these like timers that people will use to like turn off the Wi-Fi or that's what they're for, right? Like timers that will turn it off at a certain time.
Yes, so I love those. Another really easy low hanging fruit is to turn your Wi-Fi off when you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And you can do that really easily with a timer so that you just say like between the hours of, I don't know, ours is at like 10 p.m. to like 7 or 8 a.m. We just have it automatically turn off. I know how to turn it on and off. When my husband's home, he will sometimes use the Wi-Fi, but when he's not home, I'll just have everything off because I'm hardwired in. So
Mm,
you can use timers that have switches as well. So, you can turn the timer on and off. So if it's
yeah.
hardwired in, you could technically just turn the Wi-Fi off altogether and still be connected.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I want to get one of these timers, or even, yeah, I wonder if I can just like unplug it when I go to bed.
Yeah,
Um,
you can do that
and
too.
just like unplug it from the wall and then plug it back in the morning.
Yeah, you can do that too. If you remember.
Yeah.
The timer is nice because you don't have to remember.
Right. No, totally. And then the airplane mode. Okay, I am not good about the airplane mode, so I'm gonna start doing the airplane mode at night. And what I do, because I'll listen to podcasts to fall asleep a lot, just like very like practical things. Like it's like how can people really bring this into like their day to day? I'll fall asleep listening to podcasts a lot, so I'll just download it and then I can listen to it and turn it on airplane mode. So I will do that. I know it's hard for me to keep the phone out of the bedroom because I listen to something falling asleep, but I can at least put it on airplane mode.
Absolutely. And like I
Yeah.
do that too. So when I'm going on a long walk, like if I'm walking for like an hour,
Yes.
I will use wired headphones. Bluetooth
Yeah.
headphones are a radio frequency exposure. They're pretty high. So I
I
would
wanted to
avoid,
ask you about these. Yeah.
I wouldn't use them. I would
Do
never
you
want
ever
to,
use things like AirPods?
I will never use those. I will never stick. They're so close to your brain and they are
I
basically putting a
know.
cell phone in your brain.
I know.
I just, no, I won't do it.
So even if you're doing like strength training or something, what will you just like wear an armband or you'll just go no
Ugh,
music?
I hate it because it stinks. That's the one thing that really does stink, actually. Like,
Yeah.
I am trying to be wired in while I'm doing that, and it's just not working well. So, usually I just
Yeah.
won't listen to music, which does it's not. I haven't found a great solution for it, but I
Yeah.
still will not risk. I won't do that. But I really do struggle from the tinnitus. Like
Right.
if I started using those, I would definitely start getting more ringing in my ears. So
Okay.
I download everything and then go on airplane mode during those times.
That's great. Yeah. I could definitely do more of that pretty easily,
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to be more mindful of that because I do go for long walks and I don't want to hold the cell phone in my hand when I'm
Mhm.
walking. So then I have like a little like fanny pack thing that I'll kind of like
Mhm.
put on me and then I put the cell phone in there, which is still still on my body, but it just feels better not being like directly in my hand for some
Yeah.
reason. And then I'll use wired headphones and I do that. I'm only using AirPods if I am doing strength training and I'm trying to like put them in for 30 minutes and I'm taking them out.
Yeah.
Anything else, if I'm walking on the treadmill, if I'm walking outside, if I'm doing anything else, I go wired. But it's interesting to think about it. I mean, I used to run a lot years ago, and this is before AirPods existed, So I would have an armband. I'd have wired
Yeah.
headphones, and I'd put the phone in my armband, and I'd run with it on my arm,
Yeah.
And so I could also just get another armband and just do that with strength. It really, I mean, it's a little bit of a pain, but it's not that big of a deal. The AirPods are obviously, or the Bluetooth, whatever. I say AirPods, I know it's just like a brand, but that's what I have. I
Yeah.
know that those are, they are easier. It's kind of a pain, especially if you've experienced those and then you try to go back, you're like, what the heck? The walking is very easy. So I'd say at minimum walking, but yeah, I used to run 6 miles with that thing in an armband
Yeah.
and wires, so
Yeah, I know it's so convenient, and my husband will do it too because he uses the Bose ones and he does them Bluetooth,
yeah,
and I'm like, please don't, because there's so many links to radio
yeah,
frequency and cancer. It's just like not something that I want to have on my body.
yeah,
There's just too much evidence, and it just doesn't feel like something that's ever in our lifetime gonna be brought to the mainstream because telecommunication companies and these big tech companies, like,
yeah,
we're not like, there's no way that they're gonna stop. And I think we're also dependent on it too.
yeah,
And it's really hard for like research to ensue on this topic because there's really no good control group anymore. Like, we all have cell phones.
right,
So there's
right,
really no way to get like the best research on this. But the research
yeah,
that has been done, which again, you can go to that blog post where I have all, links to all this different research, it's not promising and it does not point into
yeah.
a good direction. So I just personally think that out of precaution, I would rather just avoid it and yeah, take the hard long road to certain things than like risk risk that.
Yeah. I think there was a study, I could be wrong, but I feel like there was one where everyone in the town was like fine, and then they put up like this big tower, and then like everyone got sick because they were like right around this tower. I remember my uncle telling me this like years ago, because he used to literally, I have one uncle who is like an acupuncturist and like very into all the health things, and no one else is, but he was always kind of considered like the kooky one, in that regard. And now of course like we totally vibe on all of this, and he's like all into supplements and vitamins and all that, and acupuncture, which I also love. But he like he sleeps under something, to
Oh,
like protect, like he'll literally like sleep under this like canopy thing. I don't
yeah.
know. And I was like, honestly, like I should probably get this.
Yeah, that's actually one other thing you could do too is get a they make canopies that actually reflect the radiated
Yeah.
frequency back out. So,
It's just so interesting. So I'd say at minimum for everyone, like airplane mode at night, airplane
yeah.
mode when you don't need it. I know if you have like kids, you have to receive calls or texts or whatever. My dad always says like I slept with my phone ringer on high when you guys were young and right next to the bed because
Yeah.
I had to with young kids. He's like, now he doesn't. Now he won't call us back. When we're grown up, it's changed. But at minimum, like airplane mode at night if you can, or like out of the room, even like
Yeah.
if you want the ringer on or something like that. Wired headphones if you're just walking. These are all some like pretty easy, like tactical things that I kind of heard you say that people can do. Wi-Fi
Yeah.
timers, easy low hanging fruit, which we love, because it can be very overwhelming for people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and another thing I want to touch on is you might hear a lot of like, oh, well, should I get this pendant or this sticker for my phone? And
Yes.
like, do those things work? Like,
Yeah.
don't I personally would not invest your money in those things. I've had them
Okay.
all. I have tried them all.
Yeah.
Before I became certified, as an electromagnetic radiation specialist, I had it all. And the more I learned, I just realized I wasted probably a lot of money, and it didn't really
Hmm.
impact my health the same way as really just reducing that exposure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just do a test, like take a week, see if you can do even like 3 days of really, really like unplugging everything, not using it, like just disconnecting and seeing how you feel. Because
Mm.
you might notice a really big shift, especially if you're applying it with like seeing the morning sunlight and blocking the
Hmm.
blue light. Like
Yeah.
I was able to shift my periods from 50-day cycles to 28-day cycles through doing this. So
Wow.
I find it very, very powerful and very, very
Amazing.
foundational. And, it's still a really hard one for people to swallow because it is like lesser known and a little more, we can't see it, we can't smell it, we can't,
Yeah.
it feels woo woo and it's harder, but you just kind of have to experiment and play with it for yourself and see how it impacts you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it makes sense.
Hmm.
Like it intuitively, it makes sense that we should not be staying up late on artificial light that we didn't have years ago, that we need to get sunlight exposure, that we should be waking up with the sunrise and going to bed with the sunset, or not eating long, like well into the night, because like we wouldn't have been able to do any of that before,
Yeah.
So, and we would be out in nature and we'd be moving more and we would be sitting all day and like we wouldn't be scrolling Instagram all day. Like to me, intuitively, it just makes a lot of sense. And in modern day, I mean, we're not going to get away from all of this, but it's like, where can we prioritize those things a bit more, and getting outside and grounding and getting the sunlight exposure, and not eating, at 11 p.m. and things like that, when it's just like the body doesn't run on that clock,
Yeah.
So I think intuitively it makes a lot of sense. And you can feel it too if there's like a hurricane or something and everything goes down, and then like all the lights off. I mean, you're getting sleepy. You're getting sleepy earlier. You're having to read to bed with like candlelight. I mean, it does feel so much better. So yeah, I think it's incredibly, incredibly important. And for anyone that's interested, I have a whole episode where I had Carrie Bennett on, and she spoke about optimizing circadian rhythm and all of that. So that's a really wonderful episode, you guys. And at the end of it, I walk through with her like a plan. I'm like, here's people's 5-step plan leaving this episode. So if you're interested, please have a listen to that, because it directly impacts your gut health, your gut barrier, your gut motility, your digestive capacity. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you do look at the research. So just as important, I always say this stuff is just as important as like eating vegetables or drinking green juice or, doing a cold plunge or whatever things we've created,
Yeah.
it's like this stuff matters just as much. So
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, our environment, a lot of it can feel really overwhelming, but it's Just do it in bite-sized pieces, what feels right
Yeah.
for you. And yeah, Carrie Bennett is incredible. I've learned so much from her through that. I did the applied quantum biology certification. She was one of the instructors there. She's incredible. If you want to dive into
Cool.
this, like, it's life-changing, really.
Yeah, it's so amazing that you really felt that impact on your health too. I don't doubt it at all. Yeah, we'll see people's thyroid numbers improve just with getting more sunlight. I mean, like also we're working with them and doing stuff, right? They're eating healthy and supplements and all of that, but just getting outside more and not being inside and on blue light as much and on like under overhead lights and getting that sunlight exposure can like literally help improve your thyroid function. It's wild. I mean, it's amazing, but
Yeah.
once again, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, we've just like cut ourselves off from nature so
Yeah.
much in so many
Yeah.
ways. And I think when it comes to our environment, whether you're building new, whether you're renovating, whether you're looking at a house, like it shouldn't be a replacement for like, okay, I'm gonna have this home, I'm gonna get in this environment, and now I'm just never gonna go outside. Like we really
Right.
have to work with like being outside as much as we possibly can. And
Yeah.
when we're building new, we can do things to bring more inside or outside in. But in all, when it comes to our environment, it's like just remember that like nature is the gold standard,
Yeah.
and
I love that.
follow nature, you're gonna feel good.
Yeah, when we're at conferences together and there's a break, both of us are in the parking lot. We're
Barefoot.
both we're both like walking and I'm out there calling my grandpa and I'm like, there she is. And we're both like trying to get sunlight exposure when we're in these rooms, these conference rooms all day.
Yes, I know. And I'm always wearing my like blue light blocking glasses, and people are like, "Cool glasses! Like you're so hip, trendy." I'm like, "Oh, I'm like actually not trying to be hip or trendy at all, but thanks."
I love it. Okay, amazing. So you mentioned some resources. We'll pop those in the show notes below. And if people are interested in learning more from you, where is the best place that they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm always on Instagram. I'm on all the socials, but Instagram is like where I'm spending my time. So at Awakening Spaces, you can find me there. Also, I just started a podcast. You can listen to my episode with Hannah. She was like my first or second one. And that's the Awakening Spaces podcast. So you can definitely learn more over there. A range of things from just creating a healthier home to building to renovating, all the things.
Amazing. Such an incredibly valuable resource for people, truly. Okay. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you,
And we'll
Hannah.
get all of those links in the show notes for everyone. And yeah, we'll talk soon.